Those 6 months were horrible. I ended up living in the basement. My wife would bring me food under the door, and I was working 24/7. The person we brought on, they weren't really technical, which is a good thing because we brought on the technical people to support them. To me, it's like the guys who know the technical stuff for marketing, give them the right direction. But from a strategy point of view, you need somebody who really understands the space. I had the wrong investors in there, shady guys. I won't get into that, but let's just say somebody comes knocking on my door. The stock's not going up. I need my money.
Oh, it's like that.
I figured out who these guys were.
Obviously, you didn't know before.
I had no idea. Literally after that meeting, I went and bought a bulletproof car. Somebody's gonna kill me, right?
All right, guys, welcome back to the Marketing Department podcast. Today, we're here with Roger Sholanki, ex-Book for Time, and now Seed 2 Capital. Roger, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Nice to be here, guys.
Absolutely.
Good
We're excited to have you here.
Yeah, good to have you in the space. We've been working together for a long time. Mm-hmm. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule and your day to be here through the Toronto traffic.
Yeah, that was a nice drive down here. Hopefully it's worth it.
Yeah, it'll be fun. Excited for our conversation. So tell us a little bit more about what you're doing now. Obviously, we'll get into Book for Time in a moment. You've recently had an exit, which we're excited to hear more about. And now you're involved with Seed 2, which we're pretty hands-on with as well. So what's your life like now? Like what are your daily priorities and how do you keep things moving in your world?
I don't do anything. I sleep till I think 1 o'clock or something. No, life hasn't really changed much. I mean, it's I started Seed 2. Obviously, we'll get into that, but it's more or less the same thing, routine. You go through, wake up, you have to focus on things, and I still have my priorities I need to get done. But life's been good, no complaints.
You got a routine? Like, what does that look like?
My routine now, I work out a lot, so I have a personal trainer 3 times a week, and then the other days I have my own routines. So I have to do something every day when I wake up. So my typical routine is you get up, a little espresso, and get powered up and do a little workout.
Yeah.
And then I would typically have a little light lunch, and then catch up with my emails. Sometimes I do that even before.
Yeah.
Right.
But I like to just make sure doing all of that. It's those habits. It's hard to break when you're doing that for so many years, right?
Yeah.
So it's routine now.
Yeah.
It's ingrained in you.
Routine, career, just like habits.
Absolutely.
I want to get into Book for Time, right? I have an understanding of what Book for Time is as a spa SaaS booking tool product. How did that come to be in its shape and form today? And what was that past like for you developing Book for Time? Like, from what I understand, your background is in development and coding, or?
Yeah, so I graduated in computer science and did my first started off my career as a software engineer. So that I can if you want, I can get more into that later if you'd like. But I worked in a corporate role for a very short period, and Book for Time was my third company. So prior to that, I had a lot of companies, but 3 successful exits.
Yeah.
And
right.
So if your questions on Book for Time, you said.
Yeah, so I was just curious. Like, you went from software engineer to developing Book for Time. Give us a little bit of background on that. Like,
just a history of you in general, even.
So, I mean, I can give you a little bit of a background how I even came up with Book for Time. That might be helpful.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So prior to when I was working, and that was for a very short period. I probably worked for like 3 years or 4 years in the corporate world, and I knew
you were gonna say days.
I knew that wasn't cut out for me. So I ended up quitting and started my first business, and I was 27 years old when I started my first business. I went in and mortgaged everything I could, and my second child was going to be born. So 3 months before my Priya was born, I started my first business in '92, and that was it was a very interesting experience because I had no idea what I was going to do.
Right.
I had no idea what products or anything, and what I did is I ended up getting a consulting contract right away because I didn't want to work for anybody. So that kind of helped pay the bills. Well, I had all these ideas flowing of products I wanted to build and started experimenting. And that's how it, kind of took off. And I knew that, to what I was really passionate about, building a product, solving problems. And that's when I started my first product, which was a point of sale system. And we ended up building that product, and had a lot of interesting stories with partnerships. We can get into that at some point, but it was a handshake. I had it was a couple of guys were sitting like around the table. I had an idea. I had two of my two friends who said, okay, they want to participate. Mm-hmm. So we all kind of shook hands, and it was like a 70, 15, 15. We started working on it, right? Mm-hmm. So we ended up launching our first product. It was really early days. This is like internet was really early stage, and one of the guys put a website up there and started showing some of the features of it. Mm-hmm. And we ended up getting a lot of leads.
Wow.
One of them happened to be a company out of Boston who really liked what I was doing, took some calls, and they ended up flying up to our Toronto office and wanted to meet with us.
Right.
So at that point, I had literally like the size of this room office, and they came up there. They were really impressed with the technology and what we were building, and they wanted to license it. Mm-hmm. So that's how it kind of all took off. And they said, okay, let's do a 5-year licensing deal. And one advice I would give you, entrepreneurs, get a great lawyer. I've had an amazing lawyer who struck a 5-year licensing deal, and if they broke it, they'd have to pay 7 figures.
Wow.
So we ended up inking everything, and life was supposed to be great. We started working on building it.
Yeah.
And then my lawyer sends all the all the shareholder agreements to everybody, and we wanted just to make it all official.
Yeah.
One of the guys said, no, this is not right. Like, I don't have any rights to vote and all those things. So ended up taking his to the lawyer, and he took my other partner, and convinced him Roger's trying to screw us. So then they left.
Right.
Oh shit.
And I had to deliver in 6 months a prototype of some of the things that we committed to do.
And at that point, are you literally coding yourself?
I am the coder, yes.
Wow.
We were all coders then, right?
Right.
So those 6 months were horrible. Like, I ended up living in the basement. My wife would bring me food under the door, and I was working 24/7 coding.
Yeah.
And on my own, I said, screw it, I'm going to do it. And I ended up just working at it and ended up getting it built.
How do you think that experience shaped the rest of your career?
That was one of those experiences I still remembered, and I can live it today. And that's how, it shocks you, right? You've never been through this.
Yeah.
So I think it really shaped a lot of my thinking, how I think about people, how I think about partnerships, employees, customers, all those things, right?
Yeah.
So definitely it was instrumental in terms of a lot of the things I went on to do afterwards, right?
Yeah.
For sure.
What kind of support system did you have during that time? Because it's obviously setting up a business is not easy.
No.
Like, it's easy in some regards, sure, but to go full entrepreneur mode, you need a support system, people you can depend on, relationships, good health and resources, et cetera. What was in that phase? Like you mentioned, your wife used to bring you food.
Yeah.
Right?
So
what was that like?
In those days, it was pretty limited. Unlike these days, there's lots of support systems out there.
Yeah.
Back in those days, it was very limited. So you don't have, people are, this is like, imagine Microsoft and, these were like companies, IBM, they're early stages and of those companies too, right? So those were like the whole tech was really starting off, right? So very limited resources you have, but I relied a lot on my, counsel, lawyer, who I met, through acquaintances, and he's still a friend of mine to this day, right? It's like, so it's one of those things, it was just a small network of people you relied on. For expertise, right?
Yeah.
But setting up a company, those are the routine things you do.
Yeah.
But it's like funding really didn't exist right back then, right? So you had to personally do it. You get loans on your house or on your assets and credit lines and credit cards, all those things, right? So it was like I had debts up to here, right? In those days.
How did your parents or your sibling, how did they all react when you're like, I'm not doing the 9-to-5 thing anymore, I'm starting my own company, I'm going to mortgage the house? Like, what was their reaction like?
They were all supportive and to some extent, right? Like I come from an entrepreneurial background, like my family, on both sides. We're entrepreneurs. So my mom always knew I would do something, right? So she kind of supported that.
Love that.
Which is great, right? And my wife supported it, so it was one of those things that wasn't an issue for me. It's really balancing everything, right? Between paying bills, getting some money in, all those things is very difficult in the early days.
And being a dad at the same time.
Being a dad of 2 kids, So that's there's a lot of compromises you got to make, with your spouse, figure out who's doing what. All those things are, you just got to work on it, right?
We're in that.
I know you guys are going through that, and there's no magic answer. Like, it just takes negotiating and figuring out what works, right, for each. And you want to make sure that you can, it's not just your own personal goals, it's your spouse's personal goals you got to respect too. So you got to work on both, right? And that's hard, right?
Yeah, that's always something.
That's a line.
Yeah, we're always trying to figure that out. Like, we have young kids, our spouses have their own personal goals, professional goals. We're trying to grow our business, and it's just busy all around. But I always feel like there's no such thing as balance. It's staying true to your values, yours, but also you move as a unit in that family unit, right? So that's always something we're trying to figure out. And fortunately, Anish and I have our lives kind of like parallel almost. Like, our kids are almost the same age, et cetera. So
it's tough because there's sacrifices you got to make.
For sure.
And I made those sacrifices, right? I couldn't spend as much time with my kids. And, Judy ended up spending more time with him and doing things, and that worked for us. Right. Which is great, right? If it didn't work for us, then we might not even be married, right? Like, it's not going to work, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I meant. Like, it's got to balance, right?
Yeah. I mean, as he was saying, and just to echo him, like, having a kid was life changing for us for many reasons. You don't get as much sleep and whatever, but in addition to that, it's like now you've got another mouth to feed. You've got big dreams, what you want for your kids, and so on. What was that experience like? So I know you said, in '92, you were about to start Book for Time, but
that's before Book for.
That's before Book for Time.
Yeah, and Book for Time came way later.
Oh, okay. So then let's talk about your first kid. And before you had that first kid, what was that experience like for you, becoming a first-time father?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, it's exciting. Like, that is like, it's so different because, I was still working back then.
Yeah.
And having your first child is like, you always it's one of those things you don't, it's exciting. So it's a dream, right? Like, and it was awesome, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So after the first company, so you exited to the company out in Boston?
Yeah. So anyways, we grew this company, and I always say my first one was a lucky one. Right. I was about a year and a half into it after we signed that deal. They ended up buying it out. Right. Because they loved it. We ended up getting into AT&T and Sprint, some big rollouts. And Pam, the CEO, called me one day and said, "Okay, that contract price we put in your agreement, you can expect it next week."
Right.
So they bought it out, right? And that was great. So it was I would think probably I was 31, 32 at the time. And it's the best experience, best feeling you can get. Like, all of a sudden, you got all this money, you can pay your bills, you can pay out your debts. Yeah. And sometimes it gets to you, right? And that was the first time you get a lot of money. It's like, wow. Yeah. And, I went and bought a new car. I ended up buying some land and started building my custom home. All those kind of things started happening.
Yeah. Right? Rewarded yourself and your
reward
family.
Yourself. And I think it's good to reward yourself. And I think I'll never regret the decisions I made, because I think, I was pretty disciplined in terms of what I wanted to put. Right. In terms of luxuries and spend money on. But then I also said, okay, what's next? This is, not it, right? This is not the end.
That's so key.
Right?
Yeah. What's next?
What's next? Yeah. I'm always thinking like that, right? Yeah. And I went on and started thinking about what I want to do next. And now we're talking we're in the .com days, right? And we're looking at a lot of companies are going public. So I had an idea of a retail system with points. It's called capture points. And we put a .NET into it, right? Because everything is a dot something.
Right.
So I knew a little bit about the marketing, and I said, okay, we're going to put a .NET on it, put all those fancy things, and came up with an idea. And I said, okay, started building it, and I was still coding. So I still coded.
Wow.
And I had a couple other guys with me. Well, actually, one of the guys in my last company, he came back. And so I brought him into this business, right? And I gave him his 15%. So that's important as a side lesson, what you commit to deliver on, right? Like if you say something, do it.
Right.
And so anyways, I honored the same deal on the new company, and he joined me.
Right.
We started working on building this technology. And so the mistake I made there was, we took it public. Okay, and through a reverse takeover of a mining company. And that's a quick way back in those days to go public. So I had these guys who had a shell company, rolled it up. We took it. We're all of a sudden trading on the Toronto Exchange, and all of a sudden it's a very different experience. Having a public company, because you really need two CEOs, one who deals with the public and one deals internally.
Right.
Very different skill sets and everything. But anyway, the long story short is that I had the wrong investors in there. I had all the shady guys there. I won't get into that. But let's just say somebody comes knocking on my door, and the stock's not going up. What we're doing about it, right? I need my money. Right?
Oh, shit.
It's like that.
So I said, all right. Finally figured out who these guys were.
Interesting.
And so...
so you didn't know, obviously you didn't know before, like who these
I had
guys
no
were.
idea. I had no idea. So it was like horrible. So I literally, after that meeting, I went and bought a bulletproof car.
Really?
I was driving around a bulletproof car because I was, somebody's going to kill me, right?
Yeah.
And,
that's crazy.
So anyways, I said to the guys, like, we got to figure this out. So we took it back private, paid them out, and continued the business to grow it, right, as a private company. And then we ended up selling that again to a U.S. company. Bought it. And then actually with that product we built really had, manage all the retail software and point of sale by then for, a lot of retail stores and big box retail. And the company who bought us, as soon as they bought us, they got bought by Micros and subsequently part of Oracle. So my product lived under Oracle for a few years, right?
Wow.
And so it was a great success story in that respect. At the end, the outcome was great. So I learned, again, a lot of lessons from that about people, employees, lots of things. Right?
Shady investors, shareholders.
Investors.
Yeah.
So imagine now when I sold that business, so this takes me to Book for Time.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So having a taste of all these things, of going through it, here I was, okay, I'm going to start Book for Time, and this is the vision behind Book for Time was really horizontal. That's how we started off,
right,
as a booking solution for anything, right? So this is, again, now I'm thinking about, how I'm going to form this company, all those things, right? Fund it. So, I was fortunate I had money, so I said, okay, I'm going to put $1 million of my own personal capital into this business, no partnerships, and start it. And that's what I did. So I started as a company, and we had a very different vision in the early days, right?
Yeah.
At that time, did you focus on launching Book for Time for a lot of business locally within Canada, North America, or globally? Like, what was that vision like for you?
So the early vision was really book time for any business that's providing time-based services.
Yeah.
So it's basically a booking engine for that.
Yeah. So like spas and
anything. So I had when we launched it, I had veterinary clinics using it. We had auto detailing shops using it. We had salons using it. We had day spas using it. We had hotels came after, but these were like some of the earlier clients, right?
Right.
That were using our product, right?
Yeah.
So it was just for booking time, for scheduling, right?
Yeah.
Right.
For, when you want to provide a service,
Yeah.
you have a schedule for that service, that's availability, and what kind of resources are available, and people can go book the time, right?
At that point, who owned the marketing? Was it you and your C-suite? Was it the sales team, or did you have an actual marketing department? in its early stages of getting Book for Time up and running, who owned?
So that's a great question. So by the time I started Book for Time, my software skills were rusty, right?
Okay.
So I was the product guy, I was the sales guy, I was the marketing guy, so I did all of that.
Right.
And so I was the visionary behind, the branding. I actually did some of the earlier logos of Book for Time myself.
Oh, wow.
Right.
And so we didn't have a marketing department, right? I did a lot of that myself, and including the product design. I did that myself, and I had 2 other guys that I brought in earlier on, and they were the technical guys, right? So actually, Tim, who used to work for me in my previous company, after I sold it, he was tired of the corporate life under Oracle and said, "Okay, come and join me." So I brought him over. And he brought his friend, Sean, over. So it was like the 3 pods, right? The 2 guys were the techies. I was the visionary on the product. I did the designs. I did the architecture of the database and all those kind of things.
Right.
And they would do the actual coding, right? And that's how it worked.
Yeah. It almost sounds like if you were like a Hollywood director, producer, like Christopher Nolan, he does his movies, he brings along Christian Bale and that whole crew. It's almost like you've gone from these exits, but you've built this core unit of trust, people that you can depend on, and you know where to plug them in. You're directing where to go.
Absolutely.
Because of these relationships, right?
Yeah, I think once you start working with people and you understand their strengths, weaknesses, motivations, it's really about building that trust, and if you can let them loose and you can get them things done, right? So that's I would say it comes easy once you know people, and that takes time, right? But once you know people and their strengths, I think it's about it's like a puzzle. You got to just put all the right pieces together, right?
Yeah. Now, obviously, you went through employing individuals. How, like back then, how difficult was it to find like the right candidates, the right people for the job? As a marketing agency on our end, sometimes you hire an individual or a group of individuals sometimes that, say they can do the job, but they can't really, or they don't do it at the level that you expect. So like, what was that whole hiring journey for you, and just bringing on the right people? So
we used a combination of, our own ads on our website organically. We used agencies for some of the roles, especially for some of the more skilled roles. We had to use agencies for that.
Media buying, things like that.
So I think it was a combination of, it was always hard to find good people. It doesn't matter where you go or what industry, there's always going to be hard, right? But we had, it wasn't that difficult. It was there. People were there.
Right.
And some roles were hard, but I think in general, like we had good, turnouts, and we were able to hire. But it's finding the right people was the hard one.
Yeah. What was like a pivotal moment for you in that Book for Time journey? So you create this tool, this product, and then it goes from. What was that moment in time where you thought like, okay, this might be it? Like this might be that big thing that happened, or that big move that took place, where you really thought like, this could be the next Facebook or whatever in that moment.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, it was really when like I said, in the early days, we had a mix of clients, and it just so happened one of our clients, called Bliss Spas. They were standalone. They got bought by the Starwood Hotels. So it was part of their W strategy, the W Hotels, and rolling it out. So and then we ended up landing around the same time Elizabeth Arden, who had 60 spas. And out of their 60 spas, probably about 10 were in hotels, like Marriott's and all that.
Right.
So once I got landed these 2 accounts, we started seeing all these new requirements coming in from our hotel properties. They wanted integrations to their PMS system. So when you check out, you could charge it to your room. Revenue posting and all those kind of things started coming through. And all these features were coming out. And we're like, nobody else is going to need this, right? So this was like, I had to think about this, because at the end of the day, we could build a a light product, okay, and which can become a great product from a horizontal strategy, or you become a vertical play. Okay?
Right.
Two very different strategies and different kind of people commitments you need to do in terms of financials and all those things.
Right.
But anyway, so when I started getting more traction in hotels, what we found is in the competitive landscape, there were very few people doing that, right? So you had like, by that time, MindBody was like, just went public. Zenoti was out there. So these are some of the earlier players that were doing horizontal like us. So we were like those three, companies doing, very similar things.
Yeah.
And we started saying, okay, like I have a choice to make now. I can go down the MindBody path, okay, which means it's a horizontal strategy, which means I'm going to need a ton of money. So I can go and raise a lot of money and be a CEO, founder of a company where you end up owning 10% or less. Or we go down the vertical path, in which case I don't need a lot of capital because it's a very vertical niche market, but it's like the blue ocean strategy. There's not, a lot of competition there.
Right. Yeah.
So we said, okay, that's what was a big moment for me is to make that decision. I wanted to go down the blue ocean. Nobody was there. People weren't looking at it. They were too busy, building, the horizontal side of the business, and so we said, okay, let's just do that.
Yeah.
There was like a couple of like SpaSoft and a couple of these old players that focused in there, and they were never able to get to cloud, right?
Right.
So we brought a cloud, native solution into this market. In the early days, it was tough because they, a lot of compliances and things you got to go through. But once we started seeing traction, it was like a pivotal moment. That's when we said, okay, we're going to stop serving that market and just become a solution for hotel resorts and wellness facilities.
Or in other words, you went from being something for everyone to focusing.
A very focused strategy. Exactly. Focus.
And I say that because, as a mentor of mine, you always tell me, Nish, you got to focus, and I'm like, okay, I will.
That's true. That's exactly because it's tough to focus and serve, it doesn't matter what business you're in. It's going to be hard to be the best for every type of account.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, look at your business, same thing. You have small businesses, you have large businesses.
Yeah.
At some point, you might need to, or different, sectors you're targeting.
Yeah.
So, like, figuring out what, your specialty is and what you're passionate about as well.
Right.
And make that decision, right? So
Absolutely.
To me, it was like, I like that market because being a technical guy, I like these, the integrations and all those things that we had to do. And we were good at it and we did that. And I also didn't want to lose my business, right? So, so that's why there was a lot of compelling factors. You got to just go through the list, right? And say, this resonates, right?
For sure.
Did you get a lot of pushback when you guys were deciding we're going to go from horizontal to vertical? And if so, how did you handle that pushback?
From where? Like
from your internal teams?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, there's a lot of times they don't understand it, right? So to me, it was the way I addressed it was we do town halls.
Okay.
And, as a small company, I would still do town halls every month. And it's the same repeating message every time, like why we're doing this. So they understand and get them excited about some of the success we're having in that, right? And once you start doing that, people buy into your vision, right? Because you're excited about it and they see the wins you're getting in there. So we always try to highlight things that were relevant to the strategy we decided to focus on, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you need people to ride with you towards
and I was, so that's the other thing is like as founders, it's important to be transparent with your employees. Doesn't matter what size you are.
Yeah.
So they fully understand why you're doing things because if you don't, they don't understand it, right? And that's just going to create confusion and, issues down the road.
And they're not going to be bought in, right? They're just going to treat the job like it's literally that, just a job.
Exactly.
But you want them to give it, obviously their all. You want them to get creative, think outside the box, challenge themselves, grow, learn new things. And just give it their all around input towards the everyday output, right? So I'm curious to know, this is obviously the marketing department. So I got to ask you, as a product owner, principal, CEO, entrepreneur, what has your relationship been like with your marketing departments or your marketing teams? I know it's a broad question. Like, do you have any beef against marketing? If so, what is that beef with marketing?
So I like I said, I was even in Book for Time until later on. I was pretty hands-on until I found the right marketing heads, right, and leaders. And so that we struggled for years trying to find, like, I knew from a marketing point of view that, we're, from a messaging, what we wanted to do.
Yep.
And when we bring in people, it's just, a lot of times people come with their own ideas, right? Which makes sense because you're joining a company, you want to add value.
Yeah.
And so we struggled at the beginning, and I probably went through a few different heads before we figured it out and said, okay, this now works. So I ended up hiring somebody from the industry, and that changed everything because they understood the industry, and they were able to do the marketing, right? So, and it was interesting, it was that the person we brought on, they weren't really technical. So which is a good thing because then we brought we brought on the technical people to support them,
right?
Because to me it's like the guys who know the technical stuff for marketing, they could do it for anything. You give them the right direction, they'll do it. But from a strategy point of view, you need somebody who really understands the space. And that once we did that, I just moved out of the way and let them do it.
Yeah,
right.
I think it comes down to communication, right? Like I think. When you hired this person, you probably figured like, okay, well, they understand the space, they understand the pain points that your customers are facing on a daily basis. So, and they understand it to a point where they know how to now speak to it, right? And communicate what Book for Time would be doing to combat those things. So that makes a lot of sense. What was like the next, like in that Book for Time journey, like what was that next part or point in time where things really scaled? Like you went from startup to now scale up. What was that moment?
So that's a great question. And for us, it was really about the last 7 years of our journey. Okay, 5 to 7 years ago was a pivotal time for me because, and this is an important message for any scaling, as a founder, you got to get out of the way and let your team do the work. It's very important because
let them cook.
Once you pass, like, we were past 100 employees by then, and I can't do everything. I can't make all the decisions.
Yeah.
And so it took me time, but once I found my, in the sales side of it, for example, I found my head,
right,
Sean, who came on board, and that was the best move I did. And in the beginning, I was pretty tight and said, okay, like, how things are going. Yeah. But after 2 years into the role, he was just rocking it, right? And he knew how to hire the right people, train them, and he built a sales machine, really.
Right.
And to me, I had to get out of that way. I stopped going to sales meetings. I stopped, and same thing with our customer success. I brought the right head to lead that up. And I came out of it completely. So I don't talk to customers unless it's like the CEO of one of the major brands, right? But I let them run with it, right? I mean, I focused on the strategy, make sure this is the path we want to get to.
Right.
Let them figure out how to get there, right?
Yeah.
And to me, that is a big, to your question, I think that's a very important stage. And if I didn't do that, we wouldn't have grown.
Right.
And as soon as I did that, we saw so much growth in the last 7 years to a point that we hit like over 100 countries.
Wow.
And, we basically owned the market.
Yeah.
And that's when we started having like guys like Agilis is coming knocking on our door, right? And said, we want to own this, right?
Wow. So what was that like when did you know you always wanted to sell Book for Time, or did it happen when those knocks on the doors came and you're like, oh, okay, maybe it's time now?
So I think like there's two answers to that. I think one is like, did I always know if I want to sell? I always think that way. when it doesn't matter what I'm doing, what business, I always make decisions as though I'm going to sell it at some point.
Right.
It just gives you more discipline, right? Way of thinking, right?
Yeah.
So I knew I wanted to sell it at some point. I didn't know when. I really thought that we were probably like 2 to 3 years away still. Okay. And we were talking about it at our board meeting, you know, like let's, you know, start planning it. Let's hire a banker, you know. So we had those conversations,
right?
Because it takes time. So we weren't ready yet, right?
Yeah.
But that's, you know, that's kind of what happened there.
Wow. And let's say Agilicis, or even if there was anybody else that put bids towards Book for Time, how does that work on the back end where you're like, this offered amount is what's going to take to get this done versus Y dollar amount? Like, how do you guys figure that out? Obviously, there's formulas, there's EBITDA, et cetera, but what was that, aside from all the technical and the mathematics and the board?
Yeah.
What would it take Roger Sholanki to sell his company?
So that's a great question. It was two things. One is making sure the home is very important, who's buying it, right? Is the right decision. Right. And to me, that's very important. Like, you know, when your company is sold, the buyer, you know, if they're just going to wind it down, then what's the point, right? So to me, it was like, you know, making sure whoever the buyer is the right buyer, right?
Right.
First thing. And the second thing is the number, right? It has to be the right number.
Yeah.
And to me, yes, there are formulas and all that. And to me, my number was like, in 2 years, if I'm going to sell, this is the number I'm going to want. So if you want it sooner, you got to pay that number now, right? And we were very frank. We ended up, working through one of the bankers as well once we got some interest, just because it also separates you, right? So you're not the one dealing directly with the buyer, right? So we brought in somebody to help facilitate that.
Intermediary.
Yeah, exactly. And they knew the number, and we told them, like, let's not waste time. This is a number.
Yeah.
And, you know, and they're a public company, so they went to the board and got it approved, and it was done, right?
Cool. What was that number?
So they paid just a little over 200 million Canadian. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So
what was that like for you in that moment? So I know you had, you know, exits earlier on in your career, but how was this one different than those ones?
It's just the size of it was obviously from the scale of our business in itself. Due to the size, you know,
200 mil, bro.
Besides the number, it's just it's an elephant somebody's buying, right? So there's a lot of things that to happen, like from due diligence and all those things, ways to mitigate that stuff.
Yeah.
But you know, that takes time, and it's very exhaustive on your employees because, you know, they're gonna have to provide so much data and all that in a short period, and keep the business running too. Right. So it's a lot of work. Yeah. It's definitely a lot more work that, you know, at the size that we were at.
Yeah.
How did life change after the exit?
Life didn't really change. No.
Yeah.
I just added some more cars and
more toys.
More toys. Yeah.
Couple more trips.
Yeah.
No, it's one of the. I mean, forget about taxes. Like, don't get me started.
CRA is not listening. It's okay. No, I know. What an incredible story. I think that story, you know, I've heard it before, of course, over the years, but every time I hear it, there's like another like piece of information that I kind of like take back. And one thing like that you didn't mention today, but you have mentioned in the past, was like almost that like fake it till you make it moment, you know, like in early on in career. And this is something that we ask all of our guests is like, what was that like fake it till you make it moment for you guys, whether at Book for Time or otherwise, where, you know, you said something that wasn't entirely the truth. Maybe it was like a white lie or whatever to get in front of someone, you know, but in turn, it ended up being like the best thing you could have done, you know?
That's a good question. I think for us, it was really about the strategy, using that strategy, I call it, to land some major accounts.
Right.
Okay, because and I think this happens to most verticals, like where in hotel space, for example, if you're the CIO of a big brand, and you know your peers are looking at what they're doing, right? And generally, like you know, the saying goes, you don't get fired for buying IBM.
Right.
That's old saying now. You probably don't remember that.
Yeah. Now it's NVIDIA. But
Yeah, we'll bring it back.
Yeah. But it's the same thing, right? You to reduce the risk of getting fired as a CIO of a company,
right.
You're going to make technical decisions based on what your peers are doing, right?
Right.
And so it's like, how do you get them all? Like you got to start with the first. Right?
Right.
And so, like, I would say some of the other things that we kind of exaggerated was, like, before we sign contracts or, like, somebody's interested, you tell somebody else it's a customer. Like, it's just, kind of elevating I wouldn't say lying, but, like, just elevating the story a little bit, right?
Yeah.
To get things rolling, right? I think those were things that, we did from a positioning point of view, right?
Yeah. And look, I think a lot of companies do this for positioning, but also because they know they can deliver, right? Like,
well, that's important. Yeah. Exactly.
Because like if you don't deliver, that's a whole other thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a whole separate problem.
Yeah. So there was I won't say who, but it was one of our competitors that they would do, say that all the time.
Yeah.
But they couldn't deliver. And I said to my team, especially when it comes to, commitments. So if you sign up with us, we're going to build this, blah blah blah. We made sure we did it, and that's really important.
Yeah.
Because your reputation, you lose it once, you don't get it back.
Absolutely. Right. Well, especially in that enterprise space, right?
Yeah.
It's hard to navigate. Now, all right. So that brings us pretty much to the exit of your business, your previous business, Book for Time. So now you've bought some toys and enjoying life, which is great. What's next?
So I started Seed2 recently, Seed2 Capital, and the idea behind Seed2 was, came out of my own personal experiences. So when I thought about like my history and going through these companies that I try to build over the years, it wasn't always the money. Money sometimes you have. Like I leveraged, for example, line of credits with BDC, Book for Time, instead of giving up equity, right? So, which is great. You got the money now. But what I didn't get is the expertise of, experiences that, that I went through. Nobody told me don't do this, that, right? And so to me that was one of the learning points is going through, helping other founders. That was what I'm really passionate about. Is two things. Now that I have a little excess money, I need to make it work also, right? So instead of keeping it in the bank, what I've said is, okay, let's go and invest in what I understand, right? So again, focus, right? Like I'm not gonna go put my money in a real estate because I don't understand real estate.
Right.
But I understand software, in particular vertical software and AI. That's where we're focused. Right. That's where I have experience. And so my focus around Seed2 is really to help companies, that are, in two different camps. One, what I call very early stage. So they could be running their seed round initially, or they could be, sub $1 million in revenue, and they need some capital, and they also need some help on how to, get their product or their sales or their customer service, and going right. So we would invest in companies like that, and at the growth stage. So these are companies that are could be doing $3, $4, $5, $6 million in revenue, but there are being the nature of vertical software, they're growing at a rule of 40 ideally, but they're not the unicorns. They're not ever going to be a unicorn,
Right.
But they are probably 3-4 years away to an exit, M&A or to private equity.
Right.
And that's where we come in. So this is where we can help them, not only with some capital to invest in areas like sales or marketing that they need, but also internally get their operations and metrics and things to a point where when they are ready for an exit, they are ready. right?
Yeah.
That's where, so we're kind of helping companies do that, because I've been through that, and I know like how hard it is when you're in that category as a business to find the right money and the right help.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. You're in the trenches and you're like doing the day to day, but then how do you go from a startup to a scale up?
Yeah, and that's what we call a second round, right? And it's actually, the concept's been there. Like like when you have founders who raise money from angels or in early seeds, so they have had their seed round. Now they need a second round, right? So that's the seed 2 round. That's where we come in, right?
Yeah.
So it's again a very focused niche vertical.
Yeah.
You being a founder yourself, and now being at a table where you are, blessed to have resources and blessed to have resources to give to other founders. What do you look for from, let's say, a qualitative perspective in a founder? Who is the ideal fit as a persona to work with you and the rest of the C2 team?
That's a great question. It starts with the founder's integrity. That's very important. I look at the people behind it. First. Forget the idea and what they're doing. First is the founders behind what's their motivation, right? Making sure that they're genuinely doing what they want to do and they've built something and they're not just, talking the talk to get out, because that's the last thing you want to invest money in, right? There's lots of those, yes.
Yeah.
So I look at the people first, because at the end of the day, it's the people you're investing in, right? At the end, that's all it is, right?
Yeah.
And that's really important. So it's the character of the founders, very important. The next thing is like who they've surrounded themselves with on the board level, if they have a board, or investors on their cap table, who's on there, right?
Right.
And it's interesting. We've looked at companies where there's like 50 people already on the cap table, right? And it's just, it gets too messy then, right?
Yeah.
And they've got different deals with different ones. So it's like we look for clean cap tables is very important, so that's another important factor. And then also the markets then we look at. After that, the rest matters, right? What's the product, customers, where they are,
For sure. Yeah. And then obviously like the goal for Seed 2 is to invest in these companies, help them grow, lead them to an exit of some sort, right? It's good.
Love that.
Yeah.
When you are having these conversations with these founders or singular founder, what is that initial interaction like? Like if somebody were to reach out to C2, what makes that your C2 vetting process different than any other VC fund or private equity group, let's say?
Well, I always say, I'm not the financial guy, right?
Yeah.
So most of the VCs and private equity that you see there, the original founders come from a financial background, or a corporate world, and they haven't really, been founders themselves, right? There's very few that are tech, founders who actually started firms, right? So that's kind of the first differentiator. Is I've been there in your shoes, so I can relate with that.
Right.
Yeah, that's a big piece. And C2, I believe kicked off 2025 in and around this year. What, and I know you're always asking yourself, what's next? So what is that vision for C2, let's say 5-10 years down the road? So
in this year, the next 12 months, we're actively investing in, from my own fund, which is really me. And I want to get, the first 12 to 18 months doing that and get some investments under my belt.
Yeah.
Once we've done that, the next stage would be to go and raise a fund, and hire the staffing to really scale it to the next level. So that's my vision. Like that's where I'm thinking I want to go. We'll see when we get there.
Yeah.
But that's how I'm planning it, right? Like I said, I always think about, I got ahead, right? You got to be focused.
100%.
Right. But I know like we're going to be focused on verticals, software, and AI. That's all we're going to be doing, right?
Yeah.
We're not going into horizontal products and things like that, right?
Yeah. It was really interesting to hear Roger's story and understand where that love for verticals began.
Yeah.
Right. And to now have C2 focus on having specific verticals is like, I can see how it sort of manifested throughout the story and the journey. And a lot of listeners probably don't know this, but Prospect, our agency's been involved with C2 as well on a few different initiatives, and we're excited to help you guys get to wherever you need to get on the marketing communication side. So we love working with you, the team. We've been involved on like the brand side of things as well. So it's really cool to understand your strategic vision in trying to make that come to life in a very creative way that is also strategic, right? The messaging makes sense. The logo, the design, the fonts, the user experience, it all makes sense. So getting to understand the science of your mind and translating that through, let's say, website, brand development, it has always been a really fun experience.
Yeah, you guys did a great job on my brand.
Yeah.
It was funny. I was talking to somebody, and I asked him, "Do you look at my website?" I've known this person for a while. He goes, "Yeah, I know you didn't do it. It looks great."
That's hilarious.
Well, I love that.
Well, I think we should probably move on to our second segment here. Aziz, I'd like for you to start on this one.
So let's do it. We generally save the end of the end of the podcast for a session called Tagline Me, where we're going to throw some random life moments, scenarios, kind of hypothetical, some real life moments as well, and we'd like you to respond with just a gut reaction or like a little tagline or a little slogan. And I'll read a couple of questions, and then Anish will read a few more as well. So, sound good?
Sounds great.
All right. So we'll kick it off with when your SaaS baby hits 10 million ARR and you're still debugging culture.
Hire an HR.
When founders pitch vision and ignore margin.
You going down?
When you realize your first real investor was your customer.
It should have been that way.
Build it and they will come.
Yeah. When the founder's personal brand outpaces their actual product.
You're in the wrong business.
Do you see that a lot for people that pitch to you? Like the founder themselves is like just the face of the company. They're the brand. And if they were to leave or they sell or they exit, the whole thing's just going down.
Absolutely. I wouldn't say who, but there's one very close to our industry.
Interesting.
It's all about the founder.
Yeah. When your VC gut says yes, but the spreadsheet screams nope.
Get an accountant.
Last one for me is when your old operator reflexes kick in during a C2 pitch.
When your old operator
Reflexes. They kick in while you're hearing a C2 pitch.
That could be good.
Yeah. Do you know what it's like?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'll pass
I've
it over to
I've
Anish.
got a few as well. Mine will be shorter, but just gut instinct. ARR or EBITDA?
ARR.
Why?
Because top line growth is important in SaaS. EBITDA is important at a later stage, but in the first few years of your life, it's really about consistent ARR growth. Right?
Outbound sales or inbound sales?
It depends on the product.
But in your case?
In our case, it was more about outbound. Because,
Outbound.
Yeah, it's a smaller market.
Right.
And outbound strategy worked better for us than inbound. Inbound was great from when we did marketing events, trade shows. That's absolutely must do. So you will get that. But I would say 70% of our business was through outbounds.
Wow.
Got it.
Yeah, and referrals when I meant.
Right.
Yeah.
Flashy founders, red flag or green flag?
Red flag.
I think that one's self-explanatory.
Now, if you're depends what kind of business you're in.
Sure.
That's true.
Yeah, if you're in hospitality, nightclub, whatever, sure, maybe
Yeah.
there's other industries too, but yeah, it makes sense.
But as a soft,
I think it depends on the type of business you're in.
Yeah.
Is important.
Yeah.
And the stage you're at, right?
Right.
Yeah.
A private jet
Yeah.
type of business, sure. Yeah.
Like I recently met somebody who runs a pretty big financial company.
Yeah.
And they were looking for money for me to invest with them. But then he flies around a private jet and hosts big parties.
Right.
Yep.
So like, that's gotta be my money you're spending, right?
Yeah. And you own a financial company.
Yeah,
How does that work? Anyways, Roger, great to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure, and thank you for guiding us and Prospect individually and together. You know, it's always been great to have your input and insights. But yeah, Aziz.
Yeah, really appreciate you stopping by, joining us in the studio today. We're excited to continue our growth and our development together. People who are listening right now, be on the lookout for C2 as well. Yeah, we're excited to get things going, keep the ball rolling, and again, appreciate you, Roger, for joining us today.
Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure, and all the best to you guys. And you guys are doing a great job. Keep it up.
Thank you.
I'm here to support you.
Appreciate
Absolutely.
it. Thank
All
you.
right. Thanks.
All right.
We'll see you guys on the next one.
Okay.